Hey everyone, welcome to this workshop on how to create art that sells. This is a very exciting topic because we all want to sell more artwork. And so whether you have just sold a few pieces or you've never even sold a piece ever before, or you went for a while, you sold art pretty good and then it kind of stagnated and you can't figure out why, this workshop is for you. And I think it's going to answer some of the questions you might be having. So we will get started in just a second, but I want you to know that this is a live workshop. And so we have a live chat and we have Jake on here, my wonderful son-in-law, who is also a big contributor here at Milan Art Institute. And so say hi, Jake.
What's up, beautiful creatives of the world? I am so pumped for this. I will be saving your questions throughout this in a document and helping relay those to Ellie towards the end of this during the Q&A. So this is live. This is interactive. I'll even be throwing up some polls and stuff. And yeah, just hang out in the chat, meet some really awesome artists, and learn how to create art that sells in our most popular workshop with Ellie.
Okay, so just a little background about me, just so you know what sort of perspective I'm coming from and some of my experience, maybe why I'm saying some of the things I'm saying. So what you're looking at here is this handsome guy is my husband, John Milan. And I met him when I was in high school. So actually, I met him before that. I was 12 years old when we met, but we started dating when I was in high school. And he is also an artist. And so we have built our careers together. And the last time we had a job was, I don't know, way back when in the 90s when, I think we waited tables or something like that. So we both went to college, and we went to Savannah College of Art and Design. Then we transferred to University of Georgia. This is the art I was doing while I was in college, and this was the art John was doing in college. And as you can see, we probably didn't sell a whole lot of art at that point. And after that, we both got involved in the decorative art field, where we really learned this big difference between our art school art that was kind of on the darker, moodier side versus decorative art, which is kind of the exact opposite. And that is the kind of art that's used to make people happy, sell, decorate a room, things like that. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of art in between those two spectrums, which we'll get at shortly. So this is the kind of art we were doing. We got into publishing and licensing. That means we were, our art was going on all kinds of different products, and we didn't have to sell it. Other people sold it for us, and we would just license it to companies that wanted it for their products. This image on the left was in Target for a while and sold a ton, and then we started doing some more abstract art, a little bit more towards fine art. We started getting involved in some gallery relationships where we would sell our artwork in galleries and to consultants and that kind of thing. So this is the artwork from there. And we also began collaborating and working together on the same pieces. So as you can see, the artwork is kind of evolving over the years. And over our long career of 28 years now, 29 years, we've sold over 10,000 pieces of art together. And a lot of that, the bulk of that, was in a period of about 8 years where we produced 20 paintings every single week. So we went into very high production mode. A lot of it was abstracts, abstract cities, abstract florals, abstract landscapes. And we, the sizes were anywhere from 12 by 12 up to 30 by 40s, 36 by 48s. And we would sell them to a dealer, and that dealer sold them, all over the world. And so that's how we were able to produce so much and sell so much art. But through that experience, we learned a lot. We learned a lot in collaboration with these consultants, these dealers, gallery owners, getting feedback, and hearing their perspective. We learned really what kind of art sells, sort of some do's and don'ts, and that's what I'm going to share with you. Along the way, John and I began dreaming about how we can help other artists make a career and sell their art consistently, because we were getting a lot of artists coming to us and asking us, how we did it and would we be able to help them. So we decided to open Milan Art Institute, an art school dedicated to helping artists have a career in art, in 2010. And then we developed a mastery program for that exact goal, to help artists make a career out of what they're most passionate about. So that started in 2014. And then in 2018, we brought it online because people started coming from all over the world, as far as Australia, to Queen Creek, Arizona, where our studio was, to learn from us. And so we would get emails all the time. How can I learn from you? I can't make it to Arizona. And so we decided to take the program online so we could help artists all over the world. So maybe you're watching from somewhere, outside of Florida. Right now I'm in Florida, and maybe you're watching this somewhere else in the world. And so that is the beauty of online learning. Okay, so this is my artwork today, and this particular artwork you're looking at is not collaboration with John. We still do collaborate. In fact, just 2 days ago, one of our paintings in Sedona just sold, and that's a collaborative piece. So we still do collaborate, but we also do our own separate artwork. Okay. So let's dive into this, and I'm going to show you a lot of comparisons, a lot of artwork that works really well for situations, and some artwork that doesn't work as well, so that you can catch the nuances of what you want to do and maybe what you don't want to do. And it really does come down to nuance. It might just be the tweak of a color. It's not blue that works or doesn't work. It's a type of blue, and or the combination of blue with something else. So not to get too locked into rules and definites, because I think some of the best artists out there break the rules. You just have to know how to break the rules and to break them right. So it's to get some basic ideas and guidelines that I think are going to help you when you're making your decisions on what themes to paint, and maybe the colors that you want to choose, and really, style decisions. Okay, so the main thing is that's going to make artwork sell better is really making paintings that know what room they want to be in. It's really difficult to sell art if, when the viewer, let's say the collector falls in love with the piece, but they just can't imagine it in their house. They're really connected to the message. They really love looking at it, but they are thinking, about the dreaded word, the couch, right? Couch art. They really do think about that. They think, will this fit with everything else? And so that's why it's really good to know what kind of room does this art want to be in. So here are some examples of that. We have a room here, and the painting on the left doesn't feel like it belongs in that room. It feels like it belongs. It's a nice painting. It would sell to a collector that had a house that was, maybe, more traditional. Maybe it's located in Colorado or something like that. Whereas the painting on the right is a little more edgier. It's an abstract nude. It's very feminine. It's very curvy. It kind of goes with that wallpaper and the pink colors. So that feels like it fits in that room. So that's how you kind of want to think of it. So here's another example of a piece of art that really feels like it belongs in the room. The colors feel right. The theme feels like it all sort of fits. Artwork that's too modern for too traditional of a room maybe won't work. Or likewise, traditional artwork in a modern room maybe won't work. Oops. Okay, so unfortunately, art collectors still think about their couch. We already mentioned that, and this is a good example. On the left, we have two pieces of artwork that really don't fit great in that room. The sizes aren't right. The coloring isn't quite right. That room really wants something more minimal and more matching color-wise, and a little more modern, and I think format-wise, something, more horizontal. Whereas on the right, that seems to fit just right. So now you're kind of getting an idea of what we're talking about. Here's another great example of a more traditional piece in a fairly contemporary kind of transitional space, and it doesn't really work. The color doesn't fit right. The format doesn't fit right. Tall verticals, aren't great, let's say couch pieces, whereas the piece on the right fits a lot better. The colors work, the format works. So you can see here some good examples. Again, we have a room, a more traditional room, where now that modern contemporary piece looks a little funny in there, even though the well, I don't know. It could be collected. It depends on what's in the rest of the house. If the whole house is this way and this is the only piece of art looking like that, I feel like it would clash a bit. But if the house is more eclectic in the other rooms, I mean, it still could work. Whereas this more traditional piece with the darker wood, seems to fit better. Okay, so when I worked with a lot of publishers, and what would happen is a publisher, so that is somebody that came and looked at our artwork that we were working with, and they would decide which pieces they were going to license and pay for the rights to license it from us, and then they would go and put that image on all kinds of different products, or they would make prints and they would sell lithographs of it to frame companies or something like that. So they would come to our studio and they would look at John and I's artwork, and they would go around and make these comments, and we would hear them say, "Oh yeah, that landscape has a path to nowhere. Another desolate beach." And so we learned over time, well, don't paint desolate scenes, right? And don't paint paths that don't lead anywhere. These are sort of subconscious things that cause people to, not on a subconscious level really want to buy the piece of artwork. It gives this sort of subliminal message within the artwork that you're not going somewhere, or you aren't, there isn't life in this painting. So if you look at the painting on the left here, I mean, really both of these paths don't go anywhere. The one on the right leads you back a bit and you kind of go around a corner some, but both of them sort of dead end. And that is not the best choice. Now the painting on the left, it dead ends. We can't get past that barrier of grass into the ocean. But the painting on the right, it sort of ends or dwindles down really nicely, and you kind of keep going back into the sunset. So that's an example where it works. The painting on the left, again, you have a path that leads to nowhere. It kind of dead ends. Whereas on the right, you go through the fence and back into a wide open space. So you in your paintings, you want to paint the life, because somebody's going to own this. Somebody's going to buy it. If you want to sell your artwork, you're not painting just for you. There is a time and a place for that. There's plenty of time. There's plenty of artists out there who just paint for themselves and they're not interested in selling. So this workshop isn't for those people. This workshop is for people who want to sell your artwork. And if you want to sell your artwork, you have to realize that as an artist, you're in a profession of service. You're serving somebody. You're giving them an outlet to escape. You're giving them a place of beauty or a realm of beauty that they can get caught up in, they can be inspired by. So you are providing something for a client. Your artwork is not for you if you want to sell it. So I mean, it can be both. Like, I enjoy painting, but I always think of what I'm doing as a service for somebody else. So you want to paint the life that that somebody wants to live. So if you look at these two paintings, they're very similar. They're both executed, great. I even prefer the one on the left as far as execution and color, but that house just feels very dreary. And the man is carrying, I don't know if you can see it. I would need a close-up thing, but he's carrying a bucket and he's dressed in work clothes, and so he feels like heavy laden, and he's, I don't know, it just feels like work. Whereas the other one might be work, but we have a campfire going, a canoe, it's lit up. It feels good. It feels like good work versus bad work. Here is another sort of example of that. The house on the left looks really dreary and scary, and the one on the right looks like, I even think it's Christmas time. I mean, who doesn't love that? So it's much more cheerful. Again, the same example. So themes of like loneliness, isolation, sadness are not going to sell as well as themes of joy and, happiness and family and togetherness and connection. So here on the left, there are no humans in this painting at all. But luckily, there's at least cups on the table. Oops. At least there's cups on the table. So that gives us the idea that at some point humans were here. Perhaps they were drinking from those cups. But if there was a little more evidence of humans, maybe in the background there was somebody working back there, or I don't know, they left their sweater. I don't know, something. But here on the right, we do see a cat. We see a human in the window. It just feels a little more like there's a little more life to it. And the composition also has some depth, whereas the one on the left, you're like right here, you're stopped. So the whole thing just feels a little bit lifeless. So here again, the chair on the left feels a little more lifeless than the chair on the right. Even though it's still kind of worn and tattered, it still feels like it has life to it. Here's an example of lifeless looking flowers versus effervescent, sort of joyful looking flowers. So this is just showing you themes where it can be, again, very subtle. Like the bird on the left, he's looking up, and, you wouldn't think that on a subconscious level, you wouldn't think there's anything wrong with that. But the fact that the two weeds are there, and he's sort of precariously, leaves, and he's sort of precariously hanging on one, and it makes you feel like there's tension. Like if he were to move his foot onto the other, then his legs are going to go like that, and you feel bad for him. So there's this kind of tension built into this that makes you feel uneasy without even realizing why. Whereas the painting on the right, that bird is solidly on there. He's very lit up. It's very cheerful. And you don't have that built-in tension. So the painting on the left, where the tension is how the birds are personified. So you have this sort of squattier, chubby bird who's, looking kind of cranky in one direction, and then you have an even crankier bird that's looking in the opposite direction. So it looks like these two birds don't get along. They're a husband and wife that just had a fight. I don't know, something like that. Whereas the painting on the right, both the birds are looking in the same direction. They're on the same page. So these are the types of things. If you're putting a couple, or you're putting two flowers, you're putting two birds. Anytime you're putting two, they need to be friends. They need to connect. They need to get along, and watch for, the opposite. Okay, so the painting on the left again kind of feels like work, industry, maybe even cold, not very romantic, and it's one singular lonely tugboat or fishing boat or whatever that is. Whereas on the right, it's two boats, and they're kind of one's following the other. So it feels friendly. It feels a lot more sellable. Okay, so in here we have an example of that sort of lifeless idea, where in the painting on the left, there's just ever so slightly an indication of wind and like kind of a wave, but other than that, there's really no life in there. Whereas on the right, we have this, vivacious wave. We have birds flying. We have sailboats. There's other little birds in there. So it feels like life. So you can kind of see between the two, one has more life than the other. Okay, so it's a really great idea to use apps to look at your art in a space. You can get these apps very inexpensively, or they're free. Jake, do you happen to know of a good, I would have to look at my phone to see the name of it. Do you remember a name of a good app for this?
Actually, both Printful and Gelato offer this now. I think they have like premium versions where you can use directly within like the print-on-demand companies. But also you can use Canvy, that's canvy.com. That's another one. I believe they have like a free and a paid version. Or you could just go on Pinterest or, Google, find images of beautiful rooms and then throw your art over something, on the wall within, Pixelmator or Photoshop.
Right. So you could do it yourself, and there's also apps. I think if you go to the App Store and you go and you search, because they change all the time. I'm trying to remember the name of the one that I use, and I cannot remember it. But there's a bunch out there. There's so many out there. So it's really good to use one of these apps to see what your artwork looks like in a space and what kind of space. And that will give you a great indication as to who your buyer is and where to even find these buyers. That's a whole nother workshop, but that gives you a good, I think, a good start in it. And you can see what kind of spaces your artwork just doesn't fit and where it doesn't. If you find that you have a lot of tall verticals and very few horizontals, and you're struggling to even just format wise get your artwork to work in a space, you might realize, wow, I paint a lot of verticals and I need to diversify and start painting more horizontals and squares. So that's another great way, because this piece looks fine in this room, but it would look better as a square or as a horizontal. So those apps are really a great way to kind of see that, what your issues are. And here's just some more examples of and by looking at these rooms and the space it's in, you can understand, what sort of taste level your buyer is at, and where they might shop, what their hobbies might be, what colors do they like to decorate in, are they the anthropology kind of shopper, or are they more, what's another example, like Pure One Imports or something like that. You have to, everybody has kind of a different taste. Okay, so if we were to, sort of reimagine this wall and think about a piece that could better fit on this wall than this one, we could think about who lives there. Because let's look at this piece or this image. We have this very beautiful, light and bright, it could be Florida, it could be Ibiza, it could be, somewhere in the Mediterranean, somewhere else in the Mediterranean. I mean, there's a lot of places this could be, but the landscape to me looks like a lake in Georgia or South Carolina, or Minneapolis or Minnesota. That's what I'm trying to say. It kind of doesn't fit. So if we think about who lives here, and let's just take Florida. It's a couple in Florida, and how old are they? What is their taste level? They look like they're well off. They look like they're at least maybe in their 50s or older. It's a more traditional somewhat contemporary, but a more traditional look. What do they do each day? What are their hobbies? What is their work like? If they still work, what do you think they do for a living? What do they feast their eyes on? What are they looking at? What kind of magazines do they have laying around in the house? What are they, when they're online, what are their interests? What are they researching? And where's their taste level at? And so then you can come up with a piece of artwork that might better suit that room. And that's another great trick. If you, let's say you want to do some beachy, abstract ocean scenes that are mostly abstract, but they feel like a beach. You can find some homes like this one to inspire you so you can imagine before you even create that artwork where you would put it and what kind of people are living in those homes. And then it's a lot easier to find your buyers. You wouldn't sell those paintings to a middle-aged single man who likes to hunt deer in Oklahoma. That's not going to be maybe your buyer. So that is another great way. So there's also there's this kind of joke there. I don't know if you ever saw in Portlandia this show. They talked about good walls, bad art. So it's kind of this joke, but you also want to look at the space and find these images like this one where there's sort of bad art on the wall, or let's say art that could be better, and then improve upon it. You can think, okay, that piece of art doesn't exactly work in this space. The color is off. It's even off center. What size would work better? And this is another way that you could kind of reimagine art for a space, for a wall, and take maybe a piece of art that's not working as good as it could and improve upon it. How could this painting actually be better? Almost critique the painting and reimagine the room to get sellable art. So I would say that this piece of art is almost too matchy for the room. It almost feels like it was bought at the room, all together, like at the room store. And so if you were to reimagine this art, what would fit better in this space? What kind of, I could almost see something that's like a very raw, earthy, minimalist, but botanical scene that had some nature elements into it and some plants and maybe a bird or something, but done in a really contemporary way so that there's more life to all these straight edges. So that could be a way that you bring a whole new series to your artwork by looking at artwork that doesn't quite look right in a room and reimagining it. Okay, so now let's dive into color, and we're going to look at some color examples. So color is really the number one reason why a painting is going to sell. Color is really, really important. I feel like every color should really have rich color. It doesn't have to be bright. There's a difference between bright and rich. So rich color, transitioning color, and a good color story. So we're going to go over that and what does that mean. So in terms of rich color, the painting on the left has rich color, whereas the painting on the right is, sort of a little bit more anemic. In the mastery program, we have a very unique color theory that we teach that everybody really loves. It's really revolutionary. And we teach you how to keep your colors alive and rich and not neutralize your colors. I can see in the painting on the right that artist neutralized their colors, and so it doesn't have life to it. It doesn't move. And so you want to, how you get anemic color is really mixing too many complements kind of without purpose. And so everything tends to get muted, almost like it's dirty or dingy. So not all, bright color is rich. So here are some neutrals. The one on the left is very rich. It's alive. It doesn't have, even though it's neutral, even though it's not bright color, it's those natural tones, it feels very, very rich. Whereas the one on the right, it doesn't. And the reason is because they mixed black and white together almost exclusively throughout the painting. Whenever you take black and white, either a color is a tint or it's a shade. But whenever you mix black and white together in the same color, it tends to make it anemic and neutralized. Okay, so color needs to transition. You can see the painting on the left, all those magentas transition from, red to pink to a violet, and all those greens transition. They're kind of a limey green to a more, what am I trying to say? What's that other green? Like forest green. Whereas on the right, it's the same green, same white, same purple, everything's same. So color having a color story. There's so many different types of color stories. So and a good example of a color story is the painting on the left, which is a complementary color story. So you have yellow and then the complement of violet. And so, but you want to have, you don't want an equal amount of them. So that both of these, I think, represent a very good color story, where the painting on the left, it's a yellow violet, and the painting on the right, I would say the dominant color is, that turquoise, the greens basically, and then it has some of the violet in there, and then a little bit of the complement of that lime green yellow. So both of these have a color story. The one on the right is sort of a triad, which is the turquoise and the violet with the complement of the lime green. And then the one on the left is a little bit more of a complementary palette of the violet and the yellow. So you want them to be, an unequal complementary palette like the one on the left, where you have a dominant color of the violet. Whereas the one on the right, it's kind of equal. So it feels like conflict, and that's not going to sell as well because it's sort of fighting each other. And it also wouldn't know what room to be in. Does it want to be in a room where the accent color is blue, or does it want to be in a room where the accent color is orange? So having kind of an equal amount makes it difficult. Here's another example of equal versus unequal of a complementary color story. And then there is a full spectrum. So basically a rainbow, that's another type of color story, but mixing it up with a lot of neutrals. So both of these, I think, are a successful palette because of all the neutrals that are in there. The neutrals are the grays, the whites, the more, gray, white, or black. So you can see, yellow, red, green, orange, green, blue, violet in both of these, like a rainbow, but there's enough neutrals that it makes it tasteful. Here's an example where it's a full spectrum, but without a lot of the neutrals. It's just all the colors are equally intense, and you don't have a ton of the neutrals, so it just feels like a rainbow, or it feels like tie-dye, or, like kind of a hippie fest. So that doesn't work quite as well. A primary palette is another color story, so that's using the primary colors. So a good primary palette is going to be somewhat unequal, or it'll be mixed with, I think the one on the left is equal. You have the equal amount of yellow, blue, and red, but it's mixed with neutrals. So there's enough creamy white and black in there and gray that primary palette works. The one on the right, you have an equal amount and equal intensity with very few neutrals, so it feels very basic and sort of amateurish. So the painting on the left has a lot of similar neutral colors, but they do transition. So for example, what that means is, this color here, let's say it's all around the same, but here it's a little bit lighter in value, has a little more yellow in it, and then over here it transitions to more green. Same with the grays. lighter in value, a little more towards, true gray or green, and over here it goes more towards blue. So these colors transition a bit. Whereas over here, this color is the same. It's the same color throughout. It doesn't really transition. This color, we see it pop up multiple times. This gray is the same. The white is the same. So there's basically 5 colors in here, and they're repeated throughout, and it's not transitioning. Okay, so a dominant color is another color story. So you can choose one definite dominant color that you see a lot more of than any other color, like the one on the left. Whereas the one on the right, you're trying to figure out, is it green? Is it yellow? Maybe it's blue. It's hard to know. And so the color story is not as clear and not as definite. So it's harder to decorate with this piece. It's harder to fit that into a room. Whereas when you have a definite dominant color, if that room picks up that accent, then if the collector sees it, falls in love with it, they're like, oh my gosh, that would look amazing in my house. Then it's a sale. So you also want to ask about, is your color tasteful? And that is really difficult because sometimes you might not know, and you might not be sure about it. So this is a very similar color palette, and the one on the left, I think, is a more tasteful version of that color palette than the one on the right. Usually clashing, too many brights, everything is bright, there's not enough neutrals in it, meaning complementary color that makes everything a little more brown or a little more gray, because this yellow is very bright in the one on the left, but there's a lot of yellows that are more muted because there's a complement thrown into it. And then you don't see bright greens, and you don't see too many bright blues. Whereas the one on the left, it's super bright electric blue, turquoise blue, really bright yellow, really bright purple. Everything is very, very bright, and it feels like it's clashing, so it's not as tasteful. Here's another example where you have a red and green complementary palette, and the one on the left, first of all, it's more tasteful because the red is more dominating than the green. There's less green than there is red, and there's only very few of that bright red, and there's a lot of more muted red, and then there's a lot of neutral color in there and complements. Whereas the one on the right, there's almost an equal amount of bright green to bright red, and then it's the same bright green everywhere. It's that Kelly Christmas green and kind of Christmas red, and it doesn't feel as tasteful. Okay, so now that we're done with color, we're going to go into theme. Theme is the second most important reason that will make a piece of artwork sell. And so it's really important that your themes are open-ended and not too specific. So we'll look at examples of that. That it is beautiful, inspiring, hopeful, or wondrous, and not, we already kind of covered, sort of darker themes, and that it's unique and not too derivative. So, so here is open-ended versus less open-ended. The painting on the left, you can make your own story there. The painting on the right, you get this idea that there's a riddle happening and you need to solve the riddle. And the artist had an intentional, specific theme in mind or message in mind. And that tends to make, it's okay as an artist if you do have a specific message in mind, but you don't want it to be the only way. It has to be open-ended enough so that the collector can look at it and make their own story. Not everything that we're going through as artists is going to be completely relatable, and you want it to appeal to more people. So that's why you want it more open-ended. You also don't want the collector, if they don't get it, to feel, stupid, like they're not understanding something. So when I look at this piece on the right, I really don't get it. I've been trying for years to understand what this painting means, and I really don't get it. I don't understand. And it's like I need the artist's thesis statement to go with it in order for me to understand it. So in the end, I feel like I must be stupid because I don't get this. So you also don't want to beat people over the head with your message, and it can be open-ended. So they have a similar theme, but the one on the left is very subtle, and you sort of arrive at it, or it's left open-ended, whereas the one on the right, it is very, very specific. So here's another example of basically the same thing. Also, when you're doing faces or portraits, unless it's specifically a commission piece and a portrait for somebody and it's supposed to look like a specific person, you really don't want your portraits to look like somebody specific, because nobody really wants to live with a stranger in the room. So it's better to keep the face either more abstract or find that model that sort of has that generic beauty and painted in a way that is much more open-ended, and it could be anybody. And this is a very difficult thing to do. My daughter, Dimitra, she paints portraits all the time, and I think she does an amazing job at creating that generic beauty, because we hear collectors all the time say, "Oh, that looks just like my daughter," or, "Oh, that looks just like my beautiful wife." And so that's what you want. You don't want people to be like, "So who is that? Who did you paint?" When you hear that, "Who is that?" you know that your portrait was too specific looking. Oh, okay. So even locations can be open-ended. So, this could be California, this could be Florida, it could be somewhere in Tuscany. The one on the right, it could only be one place. So now, this is a little bit of a touchy subject, but a lot of artists want to paint, and they're going through things and they work out their emotions and their difficulties in their paintings. And like I said, there's maybe a time and a place for that. But if you want to sell your artwork, nobody wants to feel sad when they're looking at art. They don't want to live with sadness on their wall. They don't want to be reminded of their own pain. So what we always say is try to paint the other side of your pain. There's always a romance. There's always a solution or something beautiful on the other side of that pain. So if, let's say, both of these women are dealing with regret, that's a negative theme, right? Regret. But the one on the left, feels romantic. Like you almost want to be involved in her regret or whatever she's, regretful about. Whereas the one on the right, less so. Anyway, that's kind of the idea of it. What happened here? Okay. Okay, so here again we have something that's more upbeat and romantic and interesting, whereas on the right, it feels, just because she's leaning on her hand, she feels really sad, like she might be upset about something. Even the bottle feels like it's, precariously about to fall off a table. Whereas the one on the left, she's growing flowers, although her head is turned almost like she's sad. But it's much more sellable because of the way that it's done with the flowers and everything. This one's obviously really obvious. Although I think the painting on the right is very quirky. I bet somebody would like that just because it's so quirky. But it gives the example of what most people would rather live with. Both of these paintings are done really, really well. But the one on the right, just makes us feel kind of sad, or like you feel sorry for this girl and what she's going through. So there's sort of kind of creepy good and creepy bad. So the one on the left is a little odd. I mean, there's something very odd and quirky about that. and, very strange. The woman's very strange looking, but it kind of leaves you with wonder. The way that it's done with the numbers and the color and the bird, it's pretty cool looking. Whereas the one on the right, the way she's biting her lip and the way that the skin tone is done, it kind of looks creepy. And she's almost looking through us. It's a little strange looking. So that one definitely is not going to sell as good as the one on the left. And typically, a more confrontational gaze looking right at us is going to be less sellable than looking through us or in a different direction or eyes closed. People don't like to feel confronted. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so a sort of unique take on a familiar subject. So a still life, we've seen that a million times. This painting on the right, there's so many copies of this out there in circulation from the old masters that it's like we've seen it so many times. So if you do something like that, you're competing with, hundreds and hundreds of years of artists doing something like that. Whereas the one on the left, I actually think that is quite sellable because it has, even though, yes, it's kind of abstract, it has a definite dominant color. It belongs in a room. You could see that in a specific room. And it's a unique take on a very, very specific subject. So a very familiar subject. You can stylize things. Things can be distorted. They don't have to be realism. I think non-realism actually sells better. But this is sort of distorted in a good way, whereas the one on the right is sort of distorted in a way that makes us feel like he got shot in the head. And so that isn't, going to be as sellable. So again, the one on the left, a very familiar subject, a vase of flowers, is unique because the type of flowers they painted, the color scheme, the way that it kind of goes, all the way to the other side. Whereas the one on the right, we've seen that a million times. Everybody has painted that painting. And so you want to avoid that typical sort of cliche type subject matter and doing it in the same old way. You want to have a unique spin on it. So there's stylization where things are out of proportion. Things maybe are elongated. It's stylized, right? It's could even be cartoony. Those are not bad things. Those are great things. That type of art sells all the time. So the painting on the left is stylized very intentionally in a very unique way that makes it interesting. Whereas the one on the right, you can tell they were trying to go for realism or being representational, but they just didn't know how to do foreshortening well. So the skill level sort of made it look stylized, but not in a good way. So here's another example, and really this comes down to skill. So if you have a great foundation in traditional skills and you can paint very realistically, then you are going to be able to pull off the painting on the left, where you can deviate from that into your own stylization. Whereas if you don't have a foundation in the classics, in traditional drawing, and being able to render something realistically, then what could happen to you is you would, when you choose to stylize, it's kind of done in a way with low skill. And it becomes obvious to the viewer that you don't have enough skill to back up that stylization. So the example on the right is what I'm talking about there. Here's another example. So stylization with skill and stylization without skill. Okay, so the third reason and final one that we'll go through of what makes something sellable is excellence. There's a lot of things that make up excellence, and that is going to be adequate skill. Do you have to be the most skilled artist that ever walked the earth? No. I sold a ton of paintings early on in my career where my skills were, okay. But you do have to have enough skill. You can't have very poor skill. And if you are in the category of your skill is just not there, don't worry, because you can learn, and you can learn very quickly. I don't think that having low skills should ever stop an artist. That is just a matter of time, sometimes just a few months before your skills are at the point where you can sell your art. So if you are sitting there right now and you don't feel like you have the skills to sell your art, literally just a couple months from now, you could be at the point where you do have the skills to sell your art. So, and I think that can go for anybody who's willing to work at it. So don't let that stop you, but you do need to get to a certain level of skill where I think you're going to begin to sell your artwork consistently. Another thing is good materials that match the price. So do you have to buy the very best paint out there and, handmade linen canvases? No. But if you are selling your artwork at a certain price point, the skills and the materials that you choose should match that price point. And I think that most artists should use high quality paint. It doesn't have to be the highest quality paint, but high quality paint. Low quality paint will give you some very bad results, and it's not going to look like excellence, and it'll be a lot harder to sell. So sometimes it's not your fault. You have the skills, you have the right themes, you even have the right colors, but your paint is just really bad paint. So no matter what it is you paint, it just looks tacky or not at the quality level that it needs to be in order to sell it. So I think you need to have good materials if you want to sell your art. It should be ready to hang, nothing too complicated, very user-friendly for people. They pull it out of the box, it goes on the wall, all the hanging things are there and ready, and good craftsmanship. So let's look at some examples of that. So this is skill. So this is kind of going back to stylizing with skill versus stylizing without skill. So the painting on the left is, both of these are very simple, but it's interesting simple versus, same old daisy with a blue sky and not done with a tremendous amount of skill. So here we have, an abstract, and basically an abstract with less skill that doesn't work as well. The one on the right versus the one on the left has more skill and is done with more excellence. More care was put into it. The artist spent more time on it. They really, you can tell this artist has a series and this isn't their first abstract. Whereas the one on the right sort of feels like an experiment or a start to something. So it doesn't look like it was done with excellence. So here the painting on the left is done with a high level of skill and excellence, whereas the one on the right, less so. You can just see by the composition and, a lot of different elements there. So the painting on the left is abstracted with a lot of skill, whereas the one on the right, less skill. So this, overall, it just feels like one is done with excellence, whereas the other one is not done with excellence. So same thing here with the color of the one on the right is very, very sellable. It's just that kind of the pot smack dab in the middle. It doesn't have good negative space. It just needed a little more excellence. Here's another example of, paintings done with excellence versus not, even though it's not super realistic. So high quality materials, I already talked about that. I think it's important to use, so if we're talking about oil paint, I think that Gamblin's student grade paint is probably the only student grade paint that I've used that I think has an adequate amount of quality to it. Most of the student grades, like Winsor Newton has Winton as their student grade paint, and the colors are so weak, it's very, very difficult to get the color right with those paints. So, and the same thing with brushes. If you're using very low quality brushes, it's really hard to get the brushwork and the excellence that you need to pull off. So I'm a big advocate for better quality materials. Okay, so you want good craftsmanship. You don't want things like paint boogers. So if you don't know what a paint booger is, this is kind of an example of a paint booger. And it's usually caused when you're trying to save paint and you have dried paint on your palette and it's mixed into the wet paint. And so then it leaves paint boogers. I've literally had galleries that I've worked with that look at the side of the painting to see if there's hairs or paint boogers in there. And they've told me that because I asked him one time, what are you doing? And he said he's looking for paint boogers. I said, oh, do you not take artwork if they have paint boogers? And we said, yeah, I don't take any artwork with paint boogers, because what can happen is the paint booger can come off and basically take a little bit of paint with it, and you're left with a spot of the layer underneath. And so that's why this particular gallery wouldn't accept paintings like that. So you want to use fresh paint, clean solvent, clean your water, good craftsmanship, which comes from good habits in your studio. So a finished painting should be signed with the edges painted and varnished and ready to be sold with the hardware to be ready to go on the wall. So that would be good craftsmanship. Your artwork should be user-friendly. Like this, I would not consider very user-friendly. Even if that collector has the heart set on this, they still have to figure out how are they going to hang it on their wall. And you're going to sell more artwork if it's just easy. So you really want to think about the space that your artwork is going to go in. And that's going to be size, color, theme, contemporary, traditional, and the price point. So a traditional space versus a contemporary space. A transitional space is something like this, where there's some modern kind of elements to it with some classic things. So you see those arches, and the architecture is very traditional, but some of those furnishings are much more modern. So that's why that landscape is very abstracted. So those are called transitional pieces. And those sell very, very well because they're not, they can go in a lot of different homes, and a lot of people, it appeals to them, and you're not locked in. So you can, if you do food or things like that, you probably want it to be small so that it fits in a kitchen. It doesn't make sense to have a giant painting of an avocado that, is not going to fit in most kitchens, and you're probably not going to want an avocado in the bedroom. So you want to think about what you're painting and where it goes. If you're doing corporate or large scale art, you want to think about either very, very large homes, which are going to be more wealthy people with a higher level of taste, or it's going to be a corporate art that's going to go in a hotel or a lobby of some sort. So very large scale goes in very specific spaces, which will want sort of a specific type of art. So if you're doing artwork that's for, waiting rooms, it's going to be more contemplative, not a lot of energy. If it's going in the hallway, you just want to keep walking. It's not going to be artwork that really pulls you in and cause you to look a long time at it. So those are just some examples. You can also look at lines and mood, shapes to a room, for a specific vibe, for your kind of artwork that you want to create. So here's some examples of that. Also color. So this is an example of a, complementary palette, a splash of orange fitting in a room that is already doing that. So that room already has a splash of orange with a dominant color of blue. And as you can see, the painting on the right, the image on the right, the painting fits very well with the colors of that room. Creating in series and multiples sometimes will help you sell multiple pieces, but you kind of have to do it right. And they have to be the right size. You have to think about the space that those are going to go in. So that could be a diptych or a triptych. And a lot of times we did a 48 square for a large triptych. For a large space, we would do a 48 square, and then we would do 36 by 48 verticals on each side of it. So that would be an example, and you would want to plan all that together and think that through of what kind of space that would go in, and you know who is your buyer. Okay, so I don't know that is that I don't know what that was. There's a lot to think about when you are thinking about selling your artwork. And you want to, of course, be natural and just paint, you know, what your heart really wants to paint. And I'm not advocating necessarily for you to, unless you wanted to go into the more decorative art field, to necessarily just look at what's selling. Okay, I'll paint that. But the whole purpose of all of this is to think about what it is you're currently working on. What series are you working on? What does your artwork look like right now? And take this information and begin to tweak it or format it into you know, something that's going to be more sellable. So if you are, let's say you're working on floral paintings, some of the things you might want to ask yourself is, well, are my colors all the same in every painting? Because we tend to paint in the colors that we like, right? So if you have a whole series of, let's say, 5 floral paintings that you've been working on, and every single one of them is, you know, blue with pink flowers, you know, you're lessening your chances of selling that artwork. You would want to vary it up. And maybe this painting has a dominant color of blue. This painting has a dominant color of pink. This painting has a dominant color of, you know, more of the yellow tones, so that there's a variety to your artwork for your buyers. You want to think about, is your artwork, are those florals a unique perspective, or are they very derivative? Have we seen these florals a bunch of different times? What are you doing that's a little bit unique? What about the sizes? Are they all tall verticals, or have you mixed it up and there's some horizontals? So those little tweaks isn't changing the art that you want to create. You're still painting what you want to paint, and probably how you want to paint it. You're just taking into consideration your audience, where they live, what kind of people they are, what their taste is at, what are their habits, where is the space that this artwork is going to live in, and consider that as a service, as an artist, when you're creating your artwork. And so you probably want to be evaluating right now where you're at. Where is your artwork selling most? What successes have you had? Maybe you aren't having the successes that you've been wanting, and you're kind of stuck. I would begin to evaluate your skill. Where's your skill level at? Is there a way to increase your skill so that you have more freedom to explore more subject matter? Maybe there's more mediums that you want to try. Maybe you've only been working in acrylic, and you really need to expand and work in oil so that you can get those beautiful transitioning colors that are alive and that people really want to live with. And so learning how to oil paint would be a great next step for you. Maybe you don't know your voice and you are a little bit, you know, kind of stuck, just kind of going to a workshop and trying that, and then taking another workshop and trying that, and you're kind of bouncing all over the place, and you haven't really found what is it you want to say, what is your style? Because if you become known for a style, you will not only sell art one time, but that collector will come back and buy more and more art from you because they fell in love with your style. And you'll have this, you'll look more professional because you have a cohesive body of work. So it could be that the reason you're not selling enough art is you're just not painting enough. You just haven't developed the work habits and the work ethic in art, at least, to be able to produce enough artwork so that you can sell it. So there's all kinds of reasons, and I think the best thing right now is to really assess where you're at. The great news is, no matter where you're at in that, we can help you. We have something for you. So I mentioned it earlier that we developed the Mastery Program, which is a one-year course that teaches anybody at any level how to turn their passion for art into a career by learning those skills, by learning how to draw, learning how to oil paint, learning how to work in mixed media, learning how to work with textures and all those mixed media techniques, and be able to find their voice and get a style that's unique to them, and learning how to put a portfolio together and market and sell their artwork. So all of that in a one-year program. And we've had a ton of success stories of people that have gone through a program and that sell their artwork on a consistent basis. So just to give you an overview of what is involved in the program, there's over 250 high quality lessons and videos that teach you in a very structured way. So there's a starting point and there's an end point, and you learn through the program. So you follow each week, learning very specific things that build upon each other, so that by the end of the program, you have a complete arsenal of tools to enter into the art world and really kill it. So, so what are those sections? So the first part is drawing and oil painting. So it's foundational techniques and advanced techniques. So you can start as a beginner or an intermediate and very quickly become advanced. That's the goal, is to be very, very advanced in drawing and oil painting, so that you are free. You're not having to make decisions based on what you know how to paint. That is the most frustrating thing for an artist, I think, is where you have to go, oh, I'd love to paint a waterfall, but ooh, those are too hard. I think I will just paint a rose. And so then you make a decision based on your skill level. So the idea after the first part is that you're so skilled and you can paint anything your eye can see at a very high level, so that you're not limited in what you have to say. So then when you go into the second part, where you're developing your style and you're identifying what your voice is as an artist, you have no limitations because your skills are really at a high level. We also teach you in that section all kinds of mixed media techniques, how to work with ink, spray paint, acrylic, water-based materials, textures, collage, all kinds of things. So you find your process that you love to work in, and your style will develop out of that. You'll also be able to identify the themes that you want to paint in, and your messaging and what your message is really about. And that is an exhilarating part of the program, because you're really seeing who you are, what it is you have to say, and why you're an artist to begin with right there on the canvas. Because I believe art is incredibly powerful, and it absolutely changes the world. And if you're watching this as an artist right now, then that means you're a world changer, and your art can change the world. But in order to really get there, you have to be in the consistent practice of painting all the time, painting in your style at a high skill level and selling it. That's how your art changes the world. And so learning what your voice is and identifying your style is a really key, important part to that. And the artists that go through the program, when they get to that section, it's life-changing for them. It's absolutely life-changing. So that is a very exciting part of the program. Part 3 is learning how to become a professional. So we teach you all kinds of things about business and how to run a professional studio, professional habits, so that you can build that work ethic where you can paint consistently and be able to be productive and produce a high volume of artwork, so that you can sell a lot of artwork and be able to make the money that you want to make, so that you can fully support yourself with your art. And that's also where you start building your portfolio. And that is, at least in this program, 25 pieces of artwork that reflect your style, your voice, and what it is you want to say at a very high level. So a portfolio of 25 pieces. Then part 4 is continuing building your portfolio while you learn how to build a personal brand, how to put together a bunch of products of your artwork, like prints, or get your artwork on other products. Build a personal brand, and develop a marketing strategy that works for you, your lifestyle, your goals, what you want to do. Whether it is you want to self-represent and really sell your artwork through your own social media channels and your own website, or if you want to go the more traditional route and work with dealers, designers, consultants, galleries, publishers, get into licensing. So marketing strategy is a big piece of the program. And then how to promote and sell your artwork. So we teach you also that. So that's the 4 parts to the program. So here is Jessie, who is a mastery student, and she is saying that the mastery program has been life-changing. She has sold 15 paintings during the program already, and she is so excited about what's to come. So, and this is just a couple months ago. So that is really great. So we get a lot of really positive feedback from our students, and there's so many success stories in there. So this is Wendy, who's halfway through the program, and she is just starting the portfolio phase. The oil painting techniques elevated her work to a whole new level. And so this is Giovanna, and you can see examples of their artwork here. I really became a more unique artist with a recognizable voice. So here is Andrea Jacobson. So this is a graduate success story. So she graduated from the mastery program. You can look her up on Instagram. You can see here she has 108,000 followers. I can tell you she did not have 108,000 followers when she joined the program. I had no idea how much deep work was needed to learn my own voice. My mentor, Nicole, helped me break through personally in a way I didn't know was possible. I always thought I wasn't creative, and she has helped me relearn how to love creating the way that's unique to me. So Andrea Jacobson is a full-time artist. She has a professional studio outside of her home that is very prolific, and she sells a ton of art. She's very successful. You should follow her. She's really fantastic. So in the mastery program, you're not alone. Just like what you heard from Andrea, we have a coaching included in the mastery program. So when you sign up for the mastery program, you are with other students going through the program with you, and you become really, really close friends. And you also have access to a ton of coaches that you will learn from. You get feedback from. You can go to critiques. So there's live Zoom critiques that you can get feedback from how you're doing with your artwork. You in our community, you can post your assignments, and there will be coaches there giving you critique and feedback. Or if you have questions along the way, or you're stuck at any point, or you're struggling with motivation, or you need accountability, whatever it is you need, you're not alone. We have professional coaches who have all gone through the mastery program and that are all currently selling their artwork in their own careers that are here to help you. So it's a really, really fantastic support group and community. And you have access to it for 2 full years included in the program. So there's weekly Zoom calls and check-ins that for all kinds of different time zones, and there's lots of options for you to get help. So something else that we have been doing in the mastery program. So as a mastery student, you have access to monthly contests that we have. And so we have, just this last month, we have winners that from our contest. So these are based on the assignments. So here are the winners and how much money they won. So you actually win cash money from these contests. So Lynette Orzlowski, she won $1,000. This is the first assignment in the mastery program, and it's of painting a bird in oil. And so she won, and so she actually learned how to do this painting step by step in the mastery program in her first assignment. And so she won that. Wendy won for part 2, the mixed media with this abstract. And then Callie won part 3. So in each part of the programs, in the program, we have a contest that you can enter and win cash every single month as a mastery program student. We also have graduates that can participate in the graduate section. So as a mastery program graduate, you can continue to participate in these contests. So Loli won $1,000 as a third place prize. And Ellis won for this painting as a graduate. In second place, she won $2,000 for her fleeting beauty. And then the third place, or first place winner, Tanya Johnston, won $3,000, plus she gets to send her painting to our gallery here in Sarasota, Florida. We have this beautiful, beautiful gallery right in the gallery district in downtown, and we will have her painting in our gallery for a whole month to sell it. So that is an extremely great prize to win. So not only is the mastery program this incredible, life-changing, revolutionary art program that will fully equip you in your art career in every way you need, you will also gain a tremendous amount of friends all around the world. You will learn from incredible people. You'll have coaches and mentors that are right there with you. And you also get to participate in these incredible contests and have the opportunity to win cash money or, as a graduate, a chance to be in our gallery. So it's a fantastic program. If you want to know what the cost is and how much this incredible investment is into your future so that if you have a job, if you are doing something to earn a living in a vocation or a field that you're not excited about anymore, and you want to earn a full-time living as an artist, this is an incredible investment that can get you that. So we have monthly options where you can pay as low as $330 a month. And if you want to pay in full, it's $3,600. Or if you take the accelerator program where you get a personal mentor. So this is a mentor that's assigned to you, or you can choose one that is your personal mentor. You can message them every single day. You have Zoom calls with them, and it's like having a professional artist in your back pocket. Then this is the price. And then we have another option, which is currently not available. And that's having me or Dimitra as a mentor. So those are the pricing options, and you have lifetime access to this program. So that is really incredible. There isn't like a time limit where you're stressed out and you have to get it all done in a specific amount of time. You have a lifetime access. So that means you get to go at your own pace. And you can take, 1 year to go through the program. It could take you 2 years to go through the program, 3, 4. It's really up to you, depending on how much time you're able to devote each week. If you wanted to go through the program in 1 year, it would require around 20 hours a week to be able to go through the program in 1 year. So yeah, you get lifetime access. So it's really great. Okay, well, I want to pause there and answer questions. I bet you guys have a lot of questions from all the content that you heard. I know you looked at a lot of slides, a lot of artwork. We talked about a lot of things, and you probably were exposed to a lot of new material that you haven't seen before. And we also talked about this incredible program. So whatever questions you have, I want to answer them for you and see how I can help. So Jake, do you have questions?
Yeah, so earlier on in the workshop, somebody asked, how do you get into decorative art?
How do you get into decorative art? Well, the first thing you're going to want is a portfolio of decorative art. It is nearly impossible to get into decorative art without examples of your artwork. So that's the first thing you need to build up. And you want to work in series in a whole range of styles. So a series would be like at least 5 paintings. And it could be as many as 15 paintings, let's say 5 to 15 paintings of one particular style. So it could be abstract florals, let's say, and you want to show a variety of colors and sizes, and then you'll want to have another line of something that's maybe seashells or something, and you want to think of spaces like this is the seashells is for beach homes, and bathrooms, and so those would be smaller, let's say, and then the abstract florals, really could be anywhere depending on what type of florals they are. So you're thinking about the spaces that they're in, and you're creating a portfolio that should be at a decent skill level. Doesn't have to be the best ever, but it should be pretty good. And the colors need to be right on. Once you have that portfolio, once you have a body of work that you can show people, then it's just a matter of contacting. So there's a ton of people in that industry to contact. There's dealers, there's consultants, there's designers, there's publishers, there's licensing agents, there's galleries that sell to home decor market, and they sell. There's even regions of the country like High Point, North Carolina, devoted to home decor, and there's tons of outlets there. So there's lots and lots of outlets, but the main key is to have that body of work and then start contacting those people. But really, we go into that more in the mastery program. And the hardest part of what I just told you, that formula, would be creating the portfolio. That would be the hardest part to that, because the artwork does need to fit into that market.
Okay, so next question. Given the ever-changing landscape of consumer preferences and market dynamics, how do you recommend artists stay adaptable and innovative in their approach?
Well, yes. So I've been doing this for almost 30 years now, and I have seen the market change over 30 years, for sure. The way that we sell art has changed the most, much less so what has been being bought, what is being bought. So I think that it's more challenging to stay current in how artwork is being sold versus what kind of artwork is selling. This workshop here is about creating artwork that sells. So the how is more challenging to stay current on. And how you want to stay current on that is connecting with a community of artists who are succeeding. And that's how you can stay, I think, current on that. But knowing what to paint, it hasn't changed a ton over time. Maybe color a little bit, and maybe certain themes will be, really, hot, let's say, over from year to year. I know there's times when portraits don't sell very well, and there's times where portraits sell very well. There's times where landscapes are, more, or abstracts. That's a better example. Abstracts lately, I would say over time, have gotten more contemporary, and more contemporary art is selling better these days. But it's really a slow progress. It's something almost undetectable. It's like you can see it over a span of 8 years, 10 years, but it's not something that shifts season to season or year to year. So I think we evolve with it by creating art, by looking at other art, by getting our inspiration and feasting our eyes on lots of different things, going and looking at what is in people's houses, looking at high-end furniture stores, just getting out there and looking at things, looking at other people's art. You will naturally, I think, stay with it. It's much harder to stay with it on how art is selling.
Okay, next question. How do you find out? These are great questions, by the way. And if you guys
Yeah.
have more questions, please throw them in the chat. We're saving them. So how do you find out how your future patrons decorate their homes? How do you know if a future patron is into wildlife or horizontal landscapes, for example?
Well, you want to paint a lot. As an artist, you're going to sell more if you're prolific. I always tell people you are not even in business unless you have 30 paintings that are, at the same level of skill. If you have 30 paintings in your possession, but the first painting you painted, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and the skill level's really erratic, that doesn't count. So 30 paintings at the same level of skill, basically 30 paintings you painted in the last year or the last 6 months. So that is really important. Then you don't have to worry about nailing it with one painting. It would be very difficult to predict your future art buyer with just one painting. So that's why you want lots of chances. That's why I was saying if you did a series, you don't want the same dominant color in the whole series. You need to shake it up so that there's choices for these buyers. So if you have a portfolio of 30 paintings and there's a variety of themes, a variety of color, a variety of sizes, your collector has a lot to choose from. You're going to have verticals, you're going to have horizontals.
Okay, awesome. Next question. Is it important to have a canvas framed in an expensive frame? If all my paintings are framed in simple white frames, is there anything wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with that at all.
When making abstract art, how would you install hanging hardware if you're not sure of the orientation that the customer will want to hang it? Also, where do you sign an abstract piece?
That's a great question. You can sign it on a diagonal at the bottom right corner, and then that way it can at least be changed in 2 different directions. You won't be able to do it in 4 directions. But I was just in Europe and I saw a trend with abstracts that they weren't signed at all, and I asked what was up with that, and they said that they were signed on the back so that it could be in any direction. So that is being done. I personally don't like that. I feel like collectors want to know the intention. I think that's okay in the decorative market. I think that's a good way to go in the decorative market. But I think that if you're just want somebody to fall in love with your piece, the collector wants to be told what the orientation is. So I think that, you should just make a decision about how you want it to look and place on the wall and then sign it. But at best, you could sign it at a diagonal, then it could be either a horizontal or a vertical.
Okay, where does printmaking come into this conversation?
So printmaking as an art form, if that's what they're talking about, I am not in the printmaking industry, so I can't speak with too much authority in that. The little I do know about printmaking, if you want to sell prints from printmaking, I think one of ones would fit into everything that we're talking about. As far as other types of printmaking in a more commercial sense, I don't really know. So if you're talking about prints as in a print program and making prints of your originals, I do know a lot about that. And where that comes in is when we have a whole workshop basically where we talked about printmaking, and we really go more in depth in the mastery program. And I think that it's not a short answer, but it basically comes into play when you want to sell multiples of an original. And you can either do limited editions or you can do open editions. I think that if there's a draw on your artwork and there's a lot of people that want your artwork, that's a good time to sell some open editions. And yeah, there's a lot to printmaking. There's a whole business around printmaking.
Okay, next question. And great job. We're going through these quickly. What is the easiest market to break into? Example, decorative art, fine art market.
It totally depends on you. The easiest market to break into is the one that you're most passionate about and that your artwork reflects. So if your artwork lends itself, if you are somebody that is kind of more trendy and you really like to look at home decor and that's really important to you and you're up on that and you like to work in a lot of different mediums and a lot of different styles, then I would recommend the decorative market. That's going to be the easiest for you to break into. But if you have a very specific style that you like to work in and you have a very strong message that you want to say and you really want to build a long-term career with that style, then you want to go more into the collectible market and I think stick with that. And I think that there's buyers for almost every market, and there's so many people buying art and collecting art right now, and there's so many purposes for art. There's so many ways that you can sell art and monetize art that I think almost all the markets are easy to break into if you have the right kind of artwork.
Okay, this next question's fun. Are there any success stories who took your program who never drew or painted and was able to sell their art after the master program? I'm currently not
Absolutely.
an artist.
Absolutely. There's so many, too many to count. One person that comes to mind right now, her name is Taisha, and I wish we had this prepared because we could give you her Instagram. But she had never really painted or drew, had no experience, no skill. She jumped right into the mastery program because she saw somebody else that she knew go through the program and do really, really well. And she saw her growth and she wanted to do the same thing. So she started taking the mastery program, and I can't say that, within the first month, suddenly she was this amazing artist. It took time and it took hard work on her part. But by mixed media, by the second part, she started selling her artwork. And she's not unique, by the way. There's a lot of people like this. So this isn't just one strange example. This is a lot of people. So she started selling her artwork in the mixed media section. And she just kept selling it and kept selling it. And before she even graduated, she became a full-time artist, professional artist selling her artwork. And that was about 4 years ago, I think. And today she is still a full-time professional artist doing really, really well. And she's gotten all kinds of incredible opportunities and has done some amazing things and networked with some really incredible people in the art world, and she's doing amazing.
Okay, so next question. Did you ever notice certain dominant colors or themes appeal to different demographic groups? Like, what do male executives want for their offices?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you just think about it. I mean, the question nailed it, right? A male executive is going to have, and not all male executives are the same, right? Some are into that minimalist gray, look, right? And some are, into that kind of pop art. Some want nude women. I don't know, right? So every male executive is going to be a little bit different, but you probably aren't going to find a male executive that's going to want a pastel pink floral piece with floating strawberries in their office, because it's not going to make them feel like they're who they are representing their job. So I think there are guidelines, and you can kind of think of these different personas, and you could even make a list of the personas and begin to imagine what are the norms taste-wise of those personas, and I think you can get there. So definitely, and it depends on where you are in the country. If you go to Miami, you're going to see an aesthetic that is very Miami. It's unique to Miami. And if you go to Milwaukee, a city in, I think it's Wisconsin. Did I have that right? I got the right state. I shouldn't talk about places that, Wisconsin, Michigan. Okay. Anyway, if you go there, it's a completely different aesthetic. California, Northern California, Southern California, they have a different aesthetic. Even Sarasota, Florida to Miami, we're only 3 hours from each other, a very different aesthetic. I mean, a very, very different aesthetic. So sometimes you can, the great thing about the internet though, is you can look and find this stuff out. You can Google, you can look at home decor, you can look at houses, real estate, you can look at clothing stores. There's so many things you can look at to tap into that aesthetic that you couldn't have done before the internet. You would have to physically go there to get that vibe. So yeah, there's a lot of different places, and that's the way you got to begin to think. A lot of artists don't think these things, and that's the reason why we wanted to do this workshop, because it's not that you need to change everything you're doing to suddenly paint for the Miami aesthetic. But if you're already painting in that direction and your artwork's already kind of, let's say more pop art, then you can go look at those locations that historically love pop art, like LA, like Miami, maybe even Atlanta, downtown Atlanta. And you can look at those vibes and what is the essence of those places, and it will help you sell more art to those places. So yeah, that was a great question.
All right. So last thing. Okay, great. This is a great question. So Donna asked, how do you compare your art program to other programs out there?
Yeah, that is a very good question. Well, there's a lot of ways to get art education these days. I mean, you can go to a 4-year art school. Like I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. I think it costs like $60,000 a year. So compared to that, it's a 1-year program that probably teaches you more. I know that sounds very cocky, but I can say it with confidence because I went there. Teaches you more and teaches you actually how to make a living selling your art for a fraction of the price in, a quarter of the time. So that's a really good, strong comparison, for us. There's other ways you can learn art, like you can learn on YouTube. Not everything, but you can learn some things on YouTube. But it's such a hodgepodge, and it would take you forever to actually find. And how do you know what information you need to learn? I think a big part of learning is knowing what it is you need to learn. So what differentiates us from most programs out there is that professional artists are teaching it. People that have actually done what we're teaching and still do. So we're teaching you from our personal experience. We're not just, randomly putting something together. These are the things that we did in order to make it. And this is what you need to learn very specifically. And so I think learning from people that have already done it is a real key, because most of my professors and the people that I learned art from in school and colleges were, not really selling their artwork. They weren't actively selling their artwork. They were, teachers. They just taught. So I think our program is unique in that, and that's probably the most important thing. And secondly, you can take it anywhere in the world, doesn't matter where you are, at any time, and you can do it at your own pace. So that is really, really unique. It's truly an online program that fits right in with your lifestyle, no matter what that lifestyle is. So you don't have to go to a physical place to take it or show up at specific times. So those are some comparisons that can maybe help you evaluate it. If you, I'm sure a lot of you watching are interested in this program and are, probably even a lot of you are really eager to sign up. Registration is not open right now, so you can't sign up. But registration is opening soon. It will open May 1st. And so what you want to do is get on the wait list. So if you get on the wait list, you will get access to all kinds of incredible information that will help you get prepared for the program. Things like how to build a studio, build an easel, for your studio, or maybe you already have an easel, and how to set up your studio. What kind of materials are you going to need? Some time management lessons, some inspirational things. So there's a whole pre-registration program that you can take and while you wait for registration to open, that will really help you get prepared for this. So if you're interested in the program, I highly recommend you get on the wait list today. It's absolutely free. There's no obligation to buy anything, and you will get this curriculum right there on our platform and in email.
So click the link that is pinned in the YouTube chat if you want to join the waitlist now, or you can fill out the form that is just below this video if you're watching this on our website.
Yes, absolutely. So this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed teaching this with you and highlighting this incredible program. I highly recommend you get on the wait list because it's probably the very best thing you can do if you want to sell more artwork, if you want a career in art. So we appreciate the time that we got to have with you, and I hope you learned a lot. I hope you're super duper inspired, and we will see you next time.